Pacific Island Leaders Forum gets underway in Port Moresby. Minister expresses disgust at the sale of popular Ela Beach. And several dead from tribal fights in remote Finschaffen District.
This is National EMTV News with Tokana Hasavi.
A very good evening to you and welcome to Monday's news. It's good to have your company again. The 46th Pacific Islands Forum will commence on Wednesday, but smaller lead-up meetings started today. Secretary-General of the Pacific Islands Forum Secretariat, Dame Taylor, delivered the opening remarks at the Small Island States Leaders Meeting. Dame Meg says these smaller meetings are an opportunity for leaders to reflect, assess and engage on critical decisions for wider regionalism.
Pacific Highland Forum leaders, including observers, are in the country for the 46th Pacific Highlands Forum. The meeting will be officially open tomorrow evening.
Today's Small Highland States Leaders Meeting is one of 3 lead-up meetings before the forum on Wednesday. Tomorrow will be Pacific Highland Forum Troika, that's Papua New Guinea, Marshall Islands and Palau, with civil society organization and Pacific African Caribbean and Pacific Leaders Meeting. Wednesday will be the actual forum, followed by the Leaders Retreat on Thursday, with a post-forum dialogue on Friday. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, when welcoming the leaders, mentioned the need for the summit in the context of the uncertain period in recent months in the global economy. Prime Minister O'Neill said the agenda for the meeting will include discussions on climate change, enhancing disaster preparedness, and reducing cervical cancer in Pacific Highland women. Likewise, Secretary-General for Pacific Highland Forum Secretariat Dame Meg Taylor, during her opening remarks at the Small Highland States meeting, urged leaders for collective resolutions during meetings.
A clear message from our discussions is that the true benefits of regionalism must be measured by its impact on the most vulnerable of our Pacific Island Forum collective.
The Secretary-General further elaborated that this year marks a critical point for the region in influencing the course of international affairs, which includes the post-2015 Sustainable Development Goals and momentum towards the 2015 Paris Climate Conference.
Throughout the course of your deliberations with fellow leaders and key partners this week, your collective resolve is critical in further shaping a strategic and political Pacific response to those international endeavours.
Tomorrow's meet with civil society organizations marks the first time civil society has had an opportunity to feed its deliberations directly into the forum. Michelle Amba, National EMTV News.
The Moresby provincial government will send another team to Pindu in the Finschaffen District in ongoing efforts to diffuse heightened tensions after ongoing fighting and several brutal killings over a space of 8 months. The fighting has resulted in a severe food shortage as well as a halt in government services. A policeman and a child were victims of the violence.
This is the face of Moresby's biggest crisis this year, an 8-month-long tribal conflict that has resulted in the closure of schools, health services, the police station and an airstrip. On the 4th of August, a Moresby provincial government team led by Moresby's Deputy Governor Judas Nallau travelled to Pindu Station in an attempt to end the ongoing violence. These pictures, filmed by a member of one of the warring clans, show the armed fighters who've been involved in the brutal tit-for-tat that began in December last year. There is an alarming use of homemade guns, and school-aged children have become reportedly involved in some way in the violence. The fighting started from a land dispute between 2 clans in the Pindu area. It gradually spilled over to another neighboring village. Amidst the casualties, a policeman killed after he was accused of supplying ammunition, and the 12-year-old brother of this 9-year-old boy who had his throat cut during an ambush. The 9-year-old who had his face slashed by the attackers is recovering in Gagidu Hospital. His parents, who can't travel out of their mountain village because of the fighting, have appealed for justice. Pindu is a landlocked government station with no road access. The reason it took so long for the country to know about the severity of this problem is because you can only get in by air or by walking for 2 days to Finschaffen. Today we tried flying into Pindu to get an update, but the trip had to be abandoned due to bad weather in the mountains. Tomorrow the provincial government team will travel to Pindu again to try to move a peace settlement forward. Scott White, National MTV News, Ley.
Well, 5 people have been reported dead in Kagwa district of Southern Islands province after drinking contaminated water. Southern Islands Disaster Chairman Charles Miro reported the 5 deaths to concerned government authorities today. According to the reports of the 5 deceased, 2 are women and 3 are men. Meanwhile, food rations in the eastern part of Southern Islands is being delayed due to slow release of funds for logistics. The deaths are the first reported case in the eastern part of the province since the disaster started. Moresby South MP and Sports Minister Justin Chichenko is shocked to hear the sale and granting of a portion of land at Ela Beach to a private company. The minister says the land is marked a recreational area and wants to know how some individuals acquired the land. He has written to Prime Minister Peter O'Neill to have the land revoked and protect one of Port Moresby's iconic beachfronts.
One of Port Moresby's landmarks, Ela Beach, has been sold and leased to a private company, AWAX Holding Limited. Portion 2848, which is marked as a recreational area, is now under criticism and questioned by Moresby South MP Justin Chichenko. MP Chichenko was shocked to hear of the sale of the portion of land.
This beach was never for sale. This beach is for the people to use for recreational purposes. I have documentation here that clearly shows that the land was titled to a private company for their own self-gain.
The Moresby South MP said many of the prime land in the city has fallen prey to individuals whose public interest over business opportunities.
Moresby South, as well as our city, is shrinking every day. More developments are happening, our land is disappearing. We have to keep parks and recreational areas and ovals and sporting areas for our people.
Members of the public also raised concerns over what has transpired over the sale of the portion of land.
This is one block, 2 block man, member to finish long enya. I'm all green, all selfish land. You mean all get a need law? Some of the member you mean all who said good line long. 5 law, this is like something.
Now I'm stopping now. And public you want bell member stop. No man come. Next time 1 bell to German doing a business layer. And Tambu.
AWAX Holding were not able to comment on the matter. Meanwhile, the Lands Department has tasked its officers to look into the sale of portion 2848. Work on the ring road around Paga Hill may be interrupted if the new lease owner has official documents to the purchase of the land. Jack Lapave Jr., National MTV News.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill has accepted the Supreme Court's ruling on changes to the Constitution while highlighting the reasons behind the amendments. He says the legislation was designed to enhance the stability in the government of the nation. He said that since the passing of the integrity law that came into effect in 2002 and the ensuing amendments in 2012 and 2013, the country had enjoyed sustained economic growth, averaging at 8%. Mr. O'Neill said political stability was vital for growth and development, and that when governments used to change often, growth was undermined and investors stayed away. A 5-judge Supreme Court bench was unanimous in declaring the amendments unconstitutional. Milne Bay Airport to receive international flights, and Police Minister urges police personnel to improve disciplinary standards. We're bringing those stories plus more coming up after this break. Stay tuned. Good to have you back with National MTV News. Milne Bay's Gurney Airport will start receiving international flights from Brisbane in Australia in the next 13 months. For now, a Tourism Zone Support Initiative Steering Committee is facilitating preparations for the inaugural flight. Relevant stakeholders inspected the airport facilities and recommended improvements.
The first direct flight from Brisbane to Gani Airport is scheduled to land on the 7th of October 2016. Exactly 13 months remaining, the steering committee and relevant government agencies like the Customs, Immigration, the National Airports Corporation and the Milne Bay Provincial Government are working towards this deadline to get everything set. The national government, through its Tourism Zone initiative, has allocated 20 million kina in the 2015 budget to establish direct flights to Milne Bay's Gani Airport and later Mount Hagen's Kagamooga Airport. The NEC decision to introduce direct flights out of Brisbane was aimed at improving the tourism sector in the country and give direct access to local small to medium enterprises to make money. Though Milne Bay remains a potential tourism hub, Alatau MP Charles Hable says the Gani Airport needs an extension of its runway, proper screening and customs facilities, and a set timetable of festivals that can sustain the flights into the province.
It's not as simple as just making the cabinet direction. There's a lot of elements that need to be put in place because we don't want to waste the 20 million.
A steering committee headed by National Airports Corporation Chairman Mal Lewis is facilitating preparations for the inaugural flight.
And be something that will really tend to open Milne Bay as a tourist destination that's going to rival the other international destinations that currently exist for Australians.
Funds will now be spent to upgrade and build facilities to facilitate tourists to come to Alatau.
More maintenance is expected to be carried out at the airport before the first flight. Earlier this year, a similar arrangement was organized for flights out of Cairns into Tokua Airport. However, the flights were unsustainable and finally ceased. With this experience, the proposed Brisbane to Gani flights will be subsidized by the national government, allowing more tourists to travel to sustain the flights. Quinton Alomp, National EMTV News, Alatau.
Opposition leader Don Pollier says there is a need to upskill Pacific Islanders to carry out major infrastructure or economic activities in the Pacific. He says major infrastructure development in island nations has been supervised by people from other regions, and the indigenous Pacific Islanders have only played spectating roles.
The pressure to complete a given project on time has always forced governments of Pacific countries to engage specialists from outside the region to supervise the projects.
The mobilization of labor within the region.
Mr. Pollier said Pacific governments lack the drive to empower indigenous people, and their professional interests continue to be overlooked.
The wealth of the Pacific depends on how well we skill our people in all those various walks of life.
The Kandap MP says there are not enough skilled entrepreneurs in Papua New Guinea to head major infrastructure developments in major towns and cities or act as economic advisors in the economic boom the nation is experiencing.
Skilling of lecturers and professors and staff at universities, bringing to standard all education levels and excellence of education in all Pacific Islands to a standard that is competitive at international level.
Pollier has called on Australia and New Zealand to assist Pacific countries into upskill islanders to play leading roles in economic developments of their countries. Taklagunga, National EMTV News.
And now let's take a look at the finance news. The kina closed unchanged at $0.3565 in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, our kina was trading at $0.3490, $0.5018 Australian dollars, $0.3095 euro, and 41.21 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold, coffee and cocoa closed the day higher, while copper closed the day lower. Palm oil, copper and crude oil closed the day lower. And lastly, on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed at 272 points lower, the ASX closed at 12 points higher, and the All Ordinaries closed at 13 points higher. Stay tuned. When we come back, a story on health officers working without pay since June this year. Stay with us. Welcome back to the news. For the first time in the history of the Pacific Islands Forum, Small Island States or SIS leaders have had a closed-door session. This came about after the last forum in Palau, where it was observed that small island states had not been achieving their anticipated goals at a level they had hoped to achieve when they first congregated. The closed-door session produced an opportunity for the SIS leaders to have open and frank discussions amongst themselves on important issues that are specific to small island states.
The Small Island States or SIS leaders meeting began today with a handover of the chairmanship from Palau to Tuvalu. The outgoing chair, Tommy Remengesau, president of Palau, said last year was an active one for small island states. He urged the leaders to work together on a comprehensible strategy that will assist them achieve their goals.
That is to strengthen our small islands' position in the forum and to improve our future development prospects.
Incoming Chair Enele Sopoage, Prime Minister of Tuvalu, emphasized the importance to caucus amongst themselves to build a strong solidarity on issues specific to small island states so that their decisions are reflected in the forum's communique.
And I wish to encourage leaders to coordinate their efforts to ensure that where necessary, their decisions today are reflected and incorporated in explicit terms in the forum leaders' communique.
Deli Waigeno, National EMTV News.
Health workers employed by the Catholic Church Health Services have not received their salaries since June. This was revealed by the Catholic Health Services Office. This is because the national government has not released funds for salary and operational grants. EMTV's Fabian Unkelitz has more.
The Catholic Church Health Services has spoken out on the national government's slow release of funds that has affected salaries and operations. National Secretary Justine McMahon told EMTV News that health workers have worked without pay for over 2 months and called on the national government to meet its commitment.
But the salaries and operational grants have not been released yet for July, and we're now in the second week of September. So they don't have them for September either. So as you can imagine, this causes very big stress for the health staff and for the running of health facilities.
There's urgent need for the national government to release funds to churches to continue operating, says Executive Director Sister Tasia Handhoff. And if billions of kina were spent on sports and infrastructure in the capital city, it's fair enough priority areas are considered first.
And help them in their needs, because especially in this time of drought now, I remember so well from the previous one how people really suffered in the rural areas. And again, this time it's again the same areas who are affected than it was previously. So I think the government would have an obligation to really look into this.
Like other churches, the Catholic Church already highly subsidizes healthcare services. It recognizes that the staff are professionals with financial commitments who cannot afford to work with no pay.
In my early years in the Highlands, if this would come up that the funds would not be available, people would, from their own, would bring food and garden fresh greens to the nurses to help them over this difficult period. But now people themselves have no food. So how can they support their nurses and their doctors in their rural health service?
Even before Waigani and after Waigani, the Catholic Church has been continuously providing the much-needed services, now partnering with other churches to bring the service where there is no government presence. What they want is for the national government to quickly intervene, to release funds on time so that people can continue to access the service. Fabian Hakelitz, National EMTV News.
Minister for Police Robert Atiafa wants to see improvements in the behavior of police personnel throughout the country. He says work ethics and discipline within the police force has deteriorated over the years. This has resulted in the public losing confidence in the constabulary.
This is intake 1 of 2015. It comprises a total of 266 recruits comprising 217 men and 49 women. RPNGC is expected to have 8,000 police personnel by this year and 10,000 by 2018. However, it is unlikely these figures will be reached. Minister for Police Robert Atiafa says this needs to be seriously looked at before the 2018 APEC summit. Poor work ethic and discipline are some of the many setbacks that have contributed to the deteriorating image of the force. What is required now from these new recruits is a high standard of discipline and strong service work ethic. Atiafa reassured the recruits of the national government's commitment to the force to alleviate some of its problems. Financial contribution and support from the Australian Federal Police has helped to train the recruits and also assisted RPNGC with its other operations. Mickey Cavera, National EMTV News.
The Nauru government has slammed New Zealand's suspension of financial aid into Nauru's below-standard justice sector. Nauru Justice Minister David Adiung says the move is based on misinformation from opposition MP Roland Kun. Mr. MP Adiung says New Zealand's aid cut undermines Nauru's sovereignty, saying it is wrong and offensive to Nauru's judges to suggest the rule of law is not being upheld correctly. The New Zealand government pulled aid assistance last week, saying the country has failed to restore international confidence since removing the Chief Justice and Police Commissioner. Australian Greens Senator Sarah Hanson-Young called on Australia to address Nauru's turbulent justice sector. Australia runs its multi-million-dollar asylum seeker camps on the island while remaining silent on Nauru's corruption and below-standard justice sector. Oil-rich Gulf states located close to conflict countries have come under the spotlight for not doing enough in the form of refuge for their neighbours. Thousands of migrants fleeing hardships in their homeland have received overwhelming support and charity from Austria and Germany, but not so much can be said for their neighbouring countries.
Exhausted and drained, but determined to make it. Most are marching towards Germany, where they are being welcomed with open arms. The majority are Syrian and have travelled thousands of miles in search of a better life, often paying the ultimate price. And now questions being raised about why these people fleeing war couldn't find suitable refuge closer to home, namely in rich Arab Gulf countries that could afford to house them. The uproar has gained momentum on social media. Images like these were widely circulated, with hashtags such as welcoming Syria's refugees as a Gulf duty, calling on leaders to do more. And the UN has voiced its concerns.
And that is why we have been asking that not only the borders of the region are open, but that all other borders, especially in the developed world, are also open. And this is true in Europe, it is true in the Gulf, it's true everywhere, where countries have the capacity to receive some Syrians and to integrate them in their societies.
There are more than 4 million Syrian refugees in the region. But according to Amnesty International, 6 Gulf countries haven't offered any resettlement locations to the refugees. They've been giving money, though, and lots of it. Since the war broke out, Kuwait alone has donated almost $1 billion to the UN to help Syrians, making it the 5th largest donor worldwide.
There is a lot that the Arab Gulf states have done that has not been recognized by the international community. I don't think anybody, any country, any state have helped the Syrian refugee more so than the Arab Gulf states.
But Gulf countries don't recognize refugees, as they're not signatories to the 1951 Refugee Convention. So anyone who wants to enter has to meet standard visa requirements, which tens of thousands of Syrians do. And there are security concerns about hosting large populations from Arab states.
Having refugees also feeds into ISIS appeal, and it feeds into the violences in the region, which is already, the most violent region on earth. So all in all, anything that goes in the neighborhood impacts the security and the stability of the Arab Gulf states, who are by far the most stable and the most secure of all Arab countries.
We've spoken to officials here in the UAE who say that they have given almost $500 million, citing their efforts to help Syrians in Jordan and in Iraq as examples. For the moment, it seems the money will continue, but the doors are staying closed.
Turning back home, the third Queensland Bar Workshop officially began today at the Legal Training Institute. The AusAid-funded programs has barristers and judges from the Queensland Bar teaching postgraduate law students on commercial law and criminal law.
The Legal Training Institute today started the third Queensland Bar Workshop. Up to 95 postgraduate law students are currently undergoing the workshop, where 15 barristers from the Queensland Bar train them on the principles and practices behind different areas of commercial law and criminal law.
What we do is we conduct a 5-day workshop in commercial litigation, and this has been at the encouragement of the Chief Justice in conjunction with Justice Logan, because for obvious reasons, in terms of the development of the economy of this country, the sophistication of lawyers being able to deal with complicated commercial litigation is very important.
Deputy Chief Justice Gibbs Salika told EMTV that the workshop is essential to the training of the upcoming lawyers. He says that since the training began, it has allowed the students to improve their performance when it comes to presenting cases in court.
It is for commercial litigation, geared towards that field of law, but it also rubs on to the other areas of the practice of the law. And when they get that training, it will do them, good stead and place them in a good position to, argue their cases.
Manuel Vartmos has been a part of the workshop since it first started 3 years ago. He says that the workshop also allows the upcoming lawyers to sharpen how they present their cases in court.
Here, I can see how the students are becoming polished in terms of their presentation in the course after they've finished the court, because I've seen a large number of the students over the last few years actually appear in court, some with me and some on the other side, and there is no doubt that the course is beneficial.
The workshop will finish off Friday afternoon. The students will go through an intensive 9 hours of training and participating in moot courts that ranges on issues on commercial law and criminal law. Adelaide Sirax-Kari, National, EMTV News.
Well, National EMTV News continues after the break with Trukai Sports. Stay tuned for all the details.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. Over to Rugby League. The assault of a Queensland Rugby League official after the Intercity Cup Grand Final has sparked public uproar on the conduct of rugby league fans and supporters. This incident is one of many episodes that have occurred since the inception of the semi-professional competition. In a news conference today, the Minister for Sports, Justin Chichenko, said that such incidents of violence will not be tolerated and harsh penalties will be imposed on individuals who spark such behaviour.
Supporters and fans of both the Eggmark Gruyers and TNA Lions were appalled by rowdy behaviour during the Intercity Cup Grand Final on Saturday. Plastic bottles, canned drinks along with other items were thrown into the field of play during the match by fans, where a majority of the Lions supporters sat.
We'll be using this official as an example of what not to do. Let him be banned, let him be arrested for assault, and let him be used as an example of what we will not tolerate when it comes to sport in Papua New Guinea. Whether it's rugby league, soccer, union, whatever, we're not going to tolerate this idiotic behaviour.
Spectator violence remains one of the major issues that plague the growth of rugby league as a code, and since the inception of the semi-professional competition. While the Intercity Cup and Judicial Committee have penalised respective clubs and players with hefty fines and bans over the years, spectators' attitudes and behaviour during home and away matches continue to be an ugly problem. Fans have come out on social media condemning this behaviour, and for the Intercity Cup Committee and organisers to heavily penalise clubs for the behaviour of their supporters.
For a TNA Lions official to try and assault one of our referees really has no merit and is a total disgrace. Now that person was arrested, put in Barocco cells, and I've recommended should be banned for life from any rugby league competition or be part of rugby league sport at all. Banned for life.
Scholar Sengi, National EMTV Sports.
Meanwhile, Queensland Rugby League has responded to the incident that occurred during the 2015 Intercity Cup Grand Final on Saturday, following the Agmark Warriors' victory over the TNA Simbu Lions. Media manager of the QRL, Michael Hillier, says the Queensland Rugby League are aware of an incident, however are unable to comment on its specifics. Hillier has confirmed the QRL referee was unharmed and all match officials travelled to PNG are safe and well, and commended Sports Minister Justin Chichenko and SP Hunters coach Michael Marum for following up on the welfare of the visiting officials. The referee, who was attacked, described the grand final as a positive experience and is willing to referee in PNG again. Sports Minister Justin Chichenko today expressed discomfort and uncertainty on the bidding process for the 2016 Oceania Swimming Championships. The minister had sent a letter to the Oceania Swimming Association saying he failed to understand the grounds on which Fiji was granted the championships, with no financial support from the Fijian government and its underdeveloped venues.
Fiji bid did not have any government support or financial support at all, and the president of the Oceania Swimming Championships is a Fijian, and with that the Oceania Committee gave a 3-week extension to Fiji to find the money so that they can host the Oceania competition. Now, that is totally corrupt. The system is totally biased towards Fiji. They haven't got any money, their pool's in a shambles, they've been given 3 weeks to find the money, and here's Papua New Guinea, got the best pool in this whole region, with the money, with the government backing, ready to rock and roll, and we get knocked back.
Well, Trukai Sports continues after this break. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. The 2015 Commonwealth Youth Games officially got underway on Saturday evening with a spectacular opening ceremony. A full house audience at the opening ceremony were dazzled with entertainment despite a brief technical glitch which caused a minor delay midway through the event.
Over 2,000 young people and teachers featured in the opening ceremony, which aimed to reflect the mantra of the Commonwealth Youth Games, such as inspiration and empowerment of young people. Followed by the Samoan national anthem, played by the police band and the hymn from the Games Choir. The opening ceremony began with the athletes' parade, as competitors from the Isles of Man led the 63 nation, taking part in the spectacular event as they hosted the event in 2001 around the track. Dominica, Rwanda, and the Solomon Islands were unable to participate in the parade due to having not yet arrived in the Samoan capital. After the official speeches were given, the 2015 Commonwealth Youth Games were officially declared open by the Samoan head of state.
I am so pleased and proud to see this very special event now taking place in your wonderful Pacific Island nation. Let's put on the best sporting party that Samoa has ever seen.
Over 1,000 young athletes will compete at the Games that will end on September 11th across 9 sports: aquatics, archery, athletics, boxing, lawn bowls, rugby sevens, squash, tennis and weightlifting. Sporting action has begun today, and none will be played on Sunday in respect to Samoa's strong Christian beliefs. Shane Saroya, National EMTV Sports.
Over to rugby. In front of a huge crowd, Fiji delivered a timely reminder that they are more than capable of playing the role of the ultimate team at the World Cup. Beating Canada by 5-3 is not the perfect indicator of a team's potential, but there were enough flashes of attacking play. If that was to be expected from Fiji, what was surprising was the strength of their set piece. They pushed the Canadians off their own scrum and their line-out. There were still issues to be ironed out. An amount of rust was understandable in the first match since winning the Pacific Nations Cup over a month ago. Indeed, they are the form team in the pool of death, having lost just one game this year by a point to the New Zealand Maoris. Former NRL star Jarryd Hayne has been turning heads in the United States, chasing his dream to play professionally in the NFL. With an impressive performance during the preseason, Hayne has been named in the San Francisco 49ers permanent squad, which was announced at the weekend.
And he's going to, boy, he picked up a ton.
The former NRL star capped off his stellar preseason with yet another strong performance in his final chance to impress. Hayne ran 118 all-purpose yards against the San Diego Chargers. Hayne also stunningly ran over a defender who tried to tackle him, sending San Diego cornerback Lowell Rose flying to the turf with a brutal shoulder charge.
Wow, Hayne. Well, that one will get a little YouTube time. Look at the 49ers.
His impressive performance has cemented a position in the team as the preseason is about to kick off. Hayne has been a hot topic in the NRL, with expert Phil Gould impressed but not surprised with his performance in the NFL.
So I sort of thought at 27 years of age, could Jarryd really seriously go over there and make a go of it? But when you look at him and you look at him physically against them and the things that he's doing, he's going to open the way for others to do this. I think our game should be immensely proud of what he's achieved in this short space of time.
Some NFL experts believe that Hayne has earned his spot with the San Francisco 49ers and are eager to see how he will progress. Dion Kombang, National, EMTV Sports.
Congrats to Jarryd Hayne. Well, that wraps up True Kai Sports tonight. Coming up next, the weather details for the next 24 hours. Stay with us.
True Kai Sports. True Kai Sports.
Taking a look at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in southern region, Port Moresby, Daru, Alatau and Popondetta, fine and sunny. In Kerema, mostly fine. In Momase, Lake City, mostly fine weather. In Madang, Wewak and Vanimore, fine weather expected. In the New Guinea Islands, Lorengau, fine weather. In Kimbe, Kavieng, Kokopo, Rabaul and Buka, brief evening showers. And in the Highlands region, all centres to look forward to cloudy weather. Looking at forecasts for small ships, but first there is a strong wind warning current for all coastal waters of southern PNG Indonesian border through Torres Strait, Daru to Kiwai Island, Milne Bay Islands to Cape Bogle, Finschaffen through to Vitia Strait, CRC, Dampier Strait, Long Island including all waters of New Guinea Islands region. Looking at waters of southern PNG Indonesian border through Torres Strait, Daru to Kiwai Island, including Vitia Strait to Finschaffen, CRC and Long Island, including Manus and its western group of islands, seas of 2.5 to 3 meters. Waters of Kiwai Island through to Kerema, Hood Point and Samurai Island, seas of 1.5 to 2 meters. Waters of eastern and western Milne Bay Islands, Samurai Island, Cape Bogle to Finschaffen, seas of 1.5 meters to 2.5 meters. Waters west of Long Island, Madang, Bogia, Wewak through to Aitape, Vanimore and the northern PNG Indonesian border, seas of 0.5 to 1.3 meters. And lastly, waters of New Ireland, New Britain and Bougainville, seas of 2 meters to 3 meters. And now let's take a look at the ocean forecast for PNG areas. Coral Sea, seas rather rough with southeast winds at 20 to 25 knots. Solomon Sea, seas rough with southeast winds at 25 to 34 knots. Bismarck Sea sees moderate with southeast winds at 20 to 34 knots. And lastly, Pacific Ocean sees moderate to rather rough with southeast winds at 20 to 34 knots. Now, before we go, as always, a quick recap at the headlines tonight. Pacific Island Leaders Forum gets underway here in Port Moresby. Also, Minister expresses disgust at the sale of popular Ela Beach and several dead from tribal fights in remote Finschaffen District. Well, that wraps up the bulletin for tonight. On behalf of the news team, I'm Tokana Hasavi Jr. Thanks for your company. You take care and stay happy. Good night.